I love mindfulness, okay, but not everybody in the world feels about it the way I do. It's not like I'm sitting here on a cloud from my culture and have studied all these other cultures, which I have, and like a lot of people from my culture, looking for something and then go, oh, well, I got it now. I'm not. Okay. This is about finding within yourself real sustainable grit. Um, okay, so over the past several years, I have said I don't feel very resilient. I'm not very resilient. I wish I were more resilient. And I'd say I'm not really resilient, but man, I have some skills that are getting me through. And people would look at me and saying, you are resilient. You are resilient. You are very resilient. And I'm like, and then one day the lights came on. I'm like going ding, ding, ding. I've got grit. I keep going. I improve my position every day. And I use those skills that I've learned, some spiritual skills, some psychological, mental skills. Some of them are in Chinese medicine principles. Some of them are from the army. Some of them are from growing up on a ranch. And I'm using them and I'm keeping going. And so I realized that I'm living my best resilient life ever. And what I really meant to say is I'm hurt. I'm raw. I don't always know what to do. I don't want to get knocked down again. I don't want another loss. I don't know if I can deal with another loss. It scares me. I'm scared. I'm not resilient. And I hope that you don't sit there and think that you're not resilient because it hurts sometimes. Because that's not it. That's not what resiliency is. And the truth is I wish I wasn't living my best resilient life ever. I wish I didn't have to. So I want to tell a story. It's about my husband and I were traveling through Wyoming Frontier Prison. Or we were traveling through Wyoming and we stopped at Wyoming Frontier Prison in Rawlins, Wyoming. And this is a historical prison. I can't give you dates. It was cold. I mean, we're talking about some places didn't have windows and some places eventually did. It was a big rock building in Wyoming in the desert. And we're talking about cold in the wintertime. And people were in this prison. And each of the people that share that Wyoming Frontier Prison experience, each one of the guides, the historical guides in there, they're really neat. It's a kind of a creepy place and a neat place all at once. But they all have their own favorite stories, and one of them, and so every time I've been there, I've heard different stories. It's pretty amazing. And one of them shared the story, I think it was on C Block, that there was a guy at the end of the block who had a wool blanket, that as they all had. They had toothpaste, as they all had. Back then, the toothpaste had pumice in it. And he would saturate a strip of his wool blanket with toothpaste until he turned it into a file. Let it dry, saturate it some more, let it dry, until he turned it into a file. And he did this over and over and over again, and he filed the latch. And he filed that latch off, and then he took some shoe polish and covered a bar of soap and put it where the latch goes so that when the guards went by checking, they wouldn't see the latch was missing. And he got out of his prison cell every night. He didn't escape prison itself, but he got out every night. And he would steal food. He would steal stuff from the commissary. He would just kind of go around doing what he wanted to do in prison every night. And I was so impressed by this story. Now, I'm not saying to go be a criminal. I'm not saying to break out of prison if you are a criminal. But I'm saying night after night, the dude sawed a latch, a steel latch, with a piece of wool and some toothpaste. And if he can do that, then how much change do you think that I can do in my life? How much change you can do in your life? That's pretty amazing. So what happened with me is I had to move to, I left an acupuncture program. I graduated the program and I started a practice. And I had to leave some communities, and I left my program and I came to Wyoming. I'm sorry, I left my practice and closed my practice, and I came to Wyoming so that me and my husband could take care of my dad. And he had cancer, stage 4 thyroid cancer. And we lived one hell of a year in that last, well, it was an entire year, about October till July. We chariot raced horses, like quarter horse race horses. We played together. We talked. We studied horses. A lot of horse stuff. Anyway, and then he got worse, and he broke his pelvis, and he died. And like a few months later, he was gone. And he wound up dying in the presence of my brother and I. And I mean, when we were taking care of him, it was 24/7. There was somebody would go out and work on the farm, and then they would come in and work and stay up all night, fixing him meals, giving him medications, taking care, making sure that he had oxygen. Because he would rip that off when he'd go to the bathroom and then fall asleep. And then they would get to sleep. Then they would watch them all the next day, and then they would get to sleep the next night. And that was the cycle that we would take turns at. And it was not sustainable. And unfortunately, it also didn't have to be sustainable because, well, I wouldn't say unfortunately. He didn't want to live that way, but he did want to get better. And he passed away. And I was raw, and I was so hurt. I had that, I started doing that share your life story on the elevator sort of thing. Not that I was on a lot of elevators in Wyoming, but you get the point. And I was so hurt. And then the next thing I know, I was in a military school. And military people aren't always nice to each other. And I was just trying to do the best I could. Later on, I was a trustee. Family dynamics changed. There was grief there. That hurt. And then I got COVID. And I don't know what was happening to my body, but I couldn't figure it out. And there was brain fog, and I didn't feel like I wanted to live, and I couldn't function, and I didn't know what else to do. With alternative medicine, I hate the word alternative because I'm more of a integrative person, but there was some alternative medicines, there was some integrative medicine, and I started to get better. I was doing pretty good. My PTSD had gotten way worse with long COVID, and I was doing so much better. And I had to get the vaccine. I was getting in touch with my military unit. I was in a new unit because the last unit didn't want me because I was a burden. And so I was in my new military unit, and I had to get the vaccine or get fired. And I got the vaccine, and all the brain fog came back, and the pain, and it was so much pressure that I didn't even realize how much pain I was in, and it hurt, and I mean, it was all I could do to will myself to live, and I never did get better. We found out it was migraines. PTSD was way worse. Migraines never went away. You see, I have a very smooth forehead. It's from the Botox for the migraines. And medications and psychologists and neurologists and psychiatrists and the whole works. And my husband changed too, and our marriage changed, and other losses. We lost my father-in-law. We lost my son's godfather. My marriage began to deteriorate. There was times I was shut down and I couldn't move. I couldn't leave the house. And I was always like, if I can't get up, I can pray. And if I can pray, I can light a candle and pray. And so I began living this life of, in this moment where I haven't been 100% in years, what can I do? And then there was also this phenomena of, in the absence of having a experiential sensation of self, sensation of familiarity in my own body. If I don't know who I am, what do I know? And I don't think that I'm not going to tell you have to believe in God. You got to figure that out. But one was, I love my God with my entire being. And two is, I always stand back up. And three, I'll do anything for my family. And so this was, along with constant self-work with my psychologist, trying to figure it out with my neurologist, things like that. It was this: what can I do in this moment? And who am I? Well, this is what I know about myself. And that's how I was living. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I've come to a point where I can't live with my husband anymore. I felt better with him gone, and that just devastated me to tell him he had to leave. It devastated my child, our child. And I also had this thing where there was people that should have been supporting me, had some kind of duty to support me. And I don't use that word lightly. And some of them weren't. Some of them had like close relationships with me that they should have been, I'd been supporting them, or, and they weren't. And yet there were people that were turning up to support me in this way that was so wonderful and so unexpected. And that's another part of resilience, is you can't do it alone. You can't. And you might sit there and think that I have to push through, but that's not sustainable. And you might think that you can't ask for help, and that's also not sustainable. Now, is it? So then if you're here to be in, make some changes, then you have to figure out, what do you know about yourself? What can you do? Okay. And when I say, what do you know about yourself? I'm not talking about, well, I fart in the morning and I like coffee. I'm not talking about that. And I'm not talking about, well, I cuss too much and I'm grumpy either. I'm talking about, something inside that can get you through? What do you know about your family that can help get you through? What do you know about your religious tradition that can help get you through? What do you know about your experiences that can help get you through? And so far, all of my videos have been really touchy-feely, and that's okay, because guess what? That's where the sustainability comes from. And it's not much good if you have trauma, you out there have trauma, and I can't, and if I blow you up, I'm not helping you be resilient, am I? So I have to have a trauma-aware set up here, and that's doable. The most trauma-aware people can still hurt people, but at least we limit it some. So to me, resilience has to be relentless. It has to be sustainable. It has to be informed by what's real for you. It has to be trauma aware for me and a lot of people, possibly for you. And if that doesn't apply, then nothing's lost. You don't have to have PTSD to do this work. It has to be purposeful. So I keep saying, well, I have a purpose in life. I had a calling of some sort, and this circumstances and these losses didn't take that away. And it has to be a commitment. And so in this moment, where are you committed? Where do you feel it inside of you? Now, if you feel it inside of you and there's places around it that is hard, it's okay, as in physical sensation of hardness or heat or tightness. It's okay, because we're gonna do things, and some of the previous videos I've made helps access that. So in the comments, let me know, do you feel stuck? Are you unstuck? What are you done being stuck with? What do you know about yourself? What's your purpose? I want to hear. I really do want to hear. And what little things that you can do to make a change. So tomorrow, Sunday the 17th, is my last day of the Army. And there is a tremendous amount of grief with that after 25 years. I got in 1999. And so right now my job is to grieve, and I will. And I'm also going to celebrate. I'm also going to figure out who I am without the Army. So there's always self-work to be done. And you're not going to look perfect, and it's not going to be perfect, and you're never going to be done. I mean, people need to get over it with their perfection stuff. It just doesn't work. It doesn't help. It usually gets in the way of real purposeful change and self-improvement. Okay, so what's new with, well, there's nothing really new. I'm still working on the restorative embodiment journal. But now from this video, I hope that you know that this touchy-feely stuff is actually the root, about gaining sustainable grit. Not, oh, well, I'm just going to sit here and I love mindfulness. Okay, but not everybody in the world feels about it the way I do. It's not like I'm sitting here on a cloud from my culture and have studied all these other cultures, which I have and like a lot of people from my culture, you know, looking for something and then go, oh, well, I got it now. I'm not. Okay. This is about finding within yourself real sustainable grit. So if you like today, if you like the other days, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I want you to come back and I want you, I don't know, practice these things if it serves you, and share it with people that will serve. Share it with people that need to get unstuck and are willing to do it, because if they're not willing to do it, I mean, you got to be willing to do it. You got to be willing to do that one little thing that you can do. And so I'm going to get off my rampage today. And as always, my Venmo will be in a link, and there might be some other links. There are some other links in the description. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day.